Dear college students and distinguished guests, welcome to the fifth business talk on supply chain management, digital transformation in certain times. This event is organized by the Logistics and Supply Chain Discipline, School of Business Management, RMIT Vietnam. We will have two speakers today who will be introduced to you shortly. During the presentation, you can post any questions on the Q&A section, and we will try to answer as much as possible at the end of each presenter session. And now I would like to introduce Professor Matthew N. Koma, Head of School and Business Management, to present the opening remarks and also introductions of our guest speaker today. Now I pass to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heath. Once again, a warm welcome to all our students, the staff and colleagues, and also our industry partners. I would like to also especially welcome our keynote speakers. I will introduce them later on. But from the School of Business and Management, the reason why we introduced this initiative is to make sure that we can talk to the industry partners so that we can hear what's happening on the industry, but also from our student perspective, you can connect with the real business issues. Because one of our strategy is ready for life and work, and this is really hitting exactly where we wanted it to be, because you'll be listening to our key industry partners and they'll give you examples of some of the issues that they're experiencing right now. And this is not just theory, because we'll also have an open discussion whereby you can pose some questions, and our industry partners, together with Dr. Heath, they will be in a position to answer all your questions. This is very good because by the time you're graduating, you can utilize all the skills that you're running like right now. So thank you very much to the logistics team for organizing this event. Let me introduce our speakers today. So we have Mr. Marco Sivardi, who is the Area Managing Director of Maersk, Vietnam, and Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. Marco has over 22 years of experience working in general management, covering sales, trade, land development, and key account management. Marco is currently the Area Managing Director for Maersk, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. Marco is a hands-on leader and has built strong and sustainable businesses in VCML, which are the key markets for Damco Global Business. Our second speaker is Ms. Huen Din. Ms. Huen is the business lead for Locus, an international logistics automation platform provider. Ms. Din, or Huen, has started her career as a consultant in a leading market research company specializing in retail measurement service. Then she made a big shift to software solution for distribution and logistics, and has been working in such field for almost 5 years. She has had some time working for a venture capital of one of the biggest conglomerates here in Vietnam. Using her diverse experience, she's now in charge of developing the Vietnam market for Locus and promoting business digital transformation, especially for logistics. As you can see, the profile of our speaker is a very high profile speakers, and to all our students, I wanted you to take advantage of all the knowledge that they're going to share. But also, when they are sharing the knowledge, make sure that you can take some notes and ask some questions at the end. Thank you very much to the logistics team, and now hand it over to Marco, and a warm welcome to Marco to RMIT, and also to Juan to RMIT. Thank you very much.
So thank you and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you and to share some thoughts on this topic, which I hope is interesting and relevant at the same time. So strategy in a certain time, you can argue almost every time is uncertain. but obviously particularly this one nowadays. The first slide is actually introducing you A.P. Moller-Maersk, basically on the vision of the company. So just a quick introduction. Maersk is of course a Danish owned family organization founded in 1904 by of course Mr. Maersk, and this slide is introducing the vision of the company. So we started from being the biggest shipping line in the world with around 20% market share in terms of containerized cargo shipping, and now building on with additional services. The simplified version is a combination of offshore services such as ocean with onshore services such as logistics and services. With this slide, we simply want to visualize that each contact point of the customer logistic need are actually served by A.P. Moller-Maersk when it comes to obviously meeting the customer, collecting the goods, shipping the goods internationally, and then at the same time doing any eventual storage, custom clearance, warehousing and distribution, or any activity in relation to serving the customer needs. At the moment, Maersk is the only company that actually merge the hardcore ocean shipping together with the onshore logistic and services. Normally, every customer purchases these services from two different entities, one dedicated for ocean shipping and the other one dedicated for the traditional logistic and services. Maersk is doing this in an integrated way. So that is the reason why we are defining ourselves as the integrator of logistic, because we're actually integrating the asset management where we own vessels or lease vessels on the international maritime routes together with the logistic and services on the ground. Connecting and simplify global supply chain is actually very much our mantra. That means we want to, of course, simplify, reduce paperwork, digitalize, and make shipping as predictable and as simple as it can possibly be for various customers in different industry and customers, of course, of different sides. Before we go to the next one, I just want to conclude on this slide by saying that normally logistics tend to be a bit of a complex business with many interfaces. We want to make the life of our customers simple, and we want to make sure that A.P. Moller-Maersk is as user-friendly as it can possibly be to customers of different sides, to the small customer booking primarily with our digital platform, up to the high volume American or European retailer who is using Maersk for far bigger transaction, both on ocean and on logistics and services. Strategy process. So here, this slide want to introduce you some of our thought process, I would say, that is helping us to, no, sorry. Can we just go back, please, can you just keep this slide blank? Yeah, and then we can go one by one. So this slide is introducing our thought process on how to think about strategy. Is a difficult topic, normally strategy, because not every manager is comfortable to think long term and to place bets and to make trade-off. Our normal life, obviously, our normal working life is very much busy and engaged with tactical priorities, but not necessarily with the necessary mental space and strength and skills to think long term. We did that last year, and now we are building on the document on an ongoing basis. So obviously, when we talk about strategy, I need to make it also clear that there is no right or wrong, and there is not a scientific answer on what is good and what is bad. This is our approach, and hopefully you find it interesting. And if you have any observation on this methodology, I would be very much willing to hear your comment. So the first point, please, you can click, is having an external view of the world, such as how the economy is progressing around our three countries and in our three countries of Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar. So it's very important to have a view on geopolitical events. That means free trade agreement, for example, and also projection of trade. Trade for us is more important than GDP, because GDP obviously include also consumption at the country level, but trade is actually more relevant because trade is really meaning for us the movement, the physical movement of goods, both on an import and on export basis. So that's the first pillar. The second one, it talks about the market. It is very important to have a clear view on the two main components of the market, which we think are obviously our customers. What do they want today and what do they want tomorrow? And also the competition. The competition obviously is not sleeping. The competition is always trying to serve our customer better and make our life a bit difficult, and obviously keeping us on our toes. So it's clear to know what do we know about them and what do we know about our customer with an equal level of depth. The third aspect is very much internal. So what do we actually want to achieve in the next medium term, let's say 3 to 5 years? What is our level of ambition in terms of penetrating on a specific industry? Could be technology, could be retail, could be automotive, or penetrating on a particular segment of customer that we identify as key. So it's very important that we got the first 2 points right, because we need to know, we need to have an opinion on how the economy is moving, and also we need to have an opinion on customers and competition. We think that you cannot necessarily build a solid strategic plan without having a clear external screening or mapping of what's around you and how you can make sense of all the moving parts happening in the world. Ambition, of course, is very, very important. Clearly, we need to, how can I say, have a yardstick in the next few years on where we want to be financially and strategically. The fourth point is talking about our pillars. So we build our future based on talent. So people come first, based on a clear assessment of customers and based on a clear assessment of our products that better fit the customer's need. One word I would like to spend some attention is on the first one, which is employer value proposition. So what does that mean? It actually means that to retain and to grow our talent, we think as the employer, we need to have a compelling value proposition for the people working for us. So why do you need to work for us? Why you pick us and not another employer? What do we have to offer that other company don't? What make the experience for you stimulating, intellectually challenging to be in our organization? So those are all questions that we need to answer ourselves. And obviously, hopefully, our candidates population will also find value in choosing Maersk as the employer for their career. So I think this is a very, very important point that require multiple iteration between us and our staff to continuously fine-tune what do we offer, is it competitive enough, is our training up to date, and so on and so forth. And the last one is equally important. So you need pillars, but you also need enablers. So if you can please click on the next button so you can visualize enablers. Is basically, I don't know why it's not coming up, but it is basically explaining the tools that are needed in order for our strategic pillars to be executed, such as our focus on capacity, our focus on entrepreneurship, and our focus on the digital agenda. So maybe we can elaborate on that further later. So we think all those are ingredients that are helping us to make sense of strategy, to have a methodology that looks with equal balance on external elements and also internal elements as well. I think that we can go to the next one. Okay, the enablers are coming up. All right, better late than never. So the next slide is, of course, on external factors. So just a quick one here. What you see on the left side is a projection of trade. Obviously, this is not a scientific answer, is our assessment of multiple sources of data. 9.3% means, optimistically speaking, with all things being equal, trade could grow on a 9.3% per year over the next few years. And on a pessimistic stance, trade could grow on an 8.5% per year over the next 3 years. Are these numbers written on the stone? Absolutely not. This is based on our own internal assessment of different sources of data, and we don't pretend to be 100% right, but at least this gives us a direction on where the trades are actually going in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Myanmar. Obviously, Vietnam is by far the biggest country with around 90% share among these 3 different countries in terms of trade value. Important is also the prime needs. And again, when we look outside, we look into also what do our customers want, and it basically boils down to 4 key particular needs that they expect from any service provider, such as capacity, flexibility. Why that is important? Because in a high growth area, you need companies that are able to create logistic solution fast and ideally to anticipate the customer needs in the years to come. Growth can change very fast. Customer can have different demand at a different pace throughout the year, and you always need to be agile and ready to cope with the requirement. Speed to market, of course, very, very important. We need to clearly assist our customers in the most fast and effective way. Innovation. Innovation means obviously many things, but one of the elements of innovation is how we can try by our own initiative to create improvement for our customer, to create improvement on cost reduction, to create improvement on process improvement, to create improvement on many, many dimensions that can benefit to our clients. The last one is, of course, one-stop shop. It's not the last one because it's the least important. It's just, I'm just reading these as they come. One-stop shop obviously mean the customer in general would expect to source multiple services from a single provider. And this is also why this is connected a bit with the vision that we shared before, where Maersk is trying to combine the ocean component with the logistic component, because we want customers to source many more services from us, from a single window, a so-called one-stop shop, so that we can have we can ease the customer experience for them, that they don't need to talk to many other providers, and hopefully we can satisfy them across the range of services that they want to utilize from us. The next slide is on the strategy house. This is our representation of strategy in action. It starts with the ambition. Obviously, we need to show that we have an ambition as a first part. So if the person responsible for the slide can click on the slide, then we can see that the first is ambition. Ambition first. Ambition is important. Why? Because we need to have a line in the sand that define what do we want to achieve over the next medium term, and that number needs to be shared by all of us. Obviously, that number is fine-tuned on a quarterly basis, but still, that is a very, very important number. And then we go into pillars. If you can please click on pillars. So here we're basically linking the strategy to what we discussed before on the 3 key pillars. So we talk about people, customers, and products. Within the people part, very important is to drive engagement in the workforce. Very important is to build the skill set that are needed today and tomorrow to cope with the demand, and also to clearly create opportunities for our talent in the company, and to, how can I say, and to deal with one of the main problems that we're all facing in emerging market, which is, of course, talent scarcity, simply by creating talent ourselves. That could be one of the ways to tackle that issue. And then we talk about customer. When we talk about customer, we have different industry verticals that we prioritize, for example, retail and technology. Within that, we have different customer segments that we categorize, and we need to be really effective in making sure that we target the right customer, and we target, of course, the right industries where we are competitive and where there is growth. And the last pillar is, of course, on product. And we believe that, by the way, these pillars are in the order we believe they are important, meaning people is number one. Why? Because if we don't do the people part right, nothing else will follow. And then customer is number two. We think customers are generally following all the good work that we do with our people. And the last part is our product. So by knowing our customer with a greater depth, then we can have the right product that can meet their needs of today and that can meet their needs of tomorrow. And when we use the language of prioritization for both customers and product, that means that every now and then, which means I would say every quarter, every 6 months, we always look back and try to think on do we have the right priorities, or certain priority can be shifted depending on market situation or any eventual disruption. So this is part also of our own strategic journey. And then we talk about the enablers. So if you can please click. So these enablers are, we believe, aspect of the business that can allow our pillars to really excel and to really deliver what they're supposed to deliver. I just make a comment on a few of them. One is entrepreneurship. We want to create an organization where people fail fast, learn, move on, and take initiative. And on that part, obviously, the senior management is playing an important role. And I want also to touch point on the risk foresight. So what does that actually mean? It means that we want to have a process where normally it's called post-mortem, and we call it pre-mortem, where basically we can now already project ourselves in 2022, 2023, and try to think on the reason why this strategy is not working, the reason why this strategy is a failure. And by projecting possible failure, we try to create mitigation strategy today that are exactly existing in order to make sure that those failures really will not materialize. So it's an exercise that we think is useful because it stretches your thinking to say, okay, now we are in 2022 and now we are commenting on why the strategy didn't work. So what happened? We misjudged the market. Okay, we overstate our capability. We did not read that competitor well. We overserved that customer, and so on and so on and so forth. So there are millions of reasons behind, but at least we want to make sure that the risk management part is very much forward-looking and not just tactically looking at what we see today. Compliance, of course, is a given, and investment is, of course, very, very important on which capability we want to acquire from the market because we think we don't have it, or because we think we don't have it to the extent that are needed to win new accounts. So this is we call it sorry, if you can go back. This is, we call it strategy house. Is obviously our own way to present our initiative. And again, we find it simple, straightforward, not confusing at all, and hopefully you will also find it equally appealing for your journey in creating business unit strategies for the company that you work for. The next one is on agile. So very simple on this one. The strategy we explain now is not written on the stone. Every quarter we meet and we try to course correct our approach. We are basically reshuffling the priorities on product, the priorities on customers and on vertical, or we are not, depending on what we learn, what we read from the market. And the last part, very important, is to reframe risks and twist the BCP. So what does the BCP stand for? Is our business continuity plan, which is basically a set of procedures that allow the company to operate even under condition of disruption. For example, there is a flood in Vietnam, or there is, like it happened in the past when I was in Japan, a earthquake in Japan. So what do we do? So we are trying to make hypotheses on risks coming to us, and then obviously we define our continuity plan to tailor the risk that are actually happening to our business, to our operation. Agile in this case means, of course, to constantly review our cost, obviously, in relation to the type of demand that we have, and to constantly adjust our thinking to be ready to capture new type of demand, depending on what is happening in the market. And we believe this is very, very important, because there's no strategy or business plan which is written on the stone, which is actually there and remain unchanged or intact for 2 to 3 years. Considering the magnitude of changes we see in the market, it's very important, at least every 4 months, 3 to 4 months, sit down and pause and just have a look around and say, what did we learn over the past 3 months? What's our take over the next 3 months? And did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Can we make any changes that make more sense at this point in time? One other thing I want to emphasize on this slide is the employee care. Throughout the process, we always have focused on the well-being of our staff, because again, this ties back to the first pillar, to talent. If we don't do that well, if you don't invest in working environment, if you don't invest on the well-being of your people, and you don't look into after the well-being of your people, you are 90% sure customers will not be happy. You're 90% sure results will not come. At least this is the way we see the world. And so employee care is always there. Did we do enough? Can we do more? Can we do something different? We can then go to the next slide that talks about COVID. Obviously, COVID has been impacting all of us, some industry more, some industry less. In our case, I would say there has been a number of impacts. So the easy one is, of course, I start from the bottom on the volatility between over demand and oversupply, and that creates a lot of requests of storage, where we try to support our customers by having space to store their goods. At the beginning, COVID started as a supply shock. So China was impacted, and the factories in Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar could not receive raw materials, and then became obviously a demand shock, where the virus in China became more under control, and then the destination countries such as America or Europe now contracted their demand. So we had a lot of factories that needed to store their production because they were obviously overproducing, and we needed to help them to reduce pressure on their inventory, to reduce pressure on their warehouses by offering space or finding new space for them. The other part is obviously tracking capacity. There's been not the full capacity of truck in the market, so there was less, and that creates some shortage, obviously, of demand. And air freight saw rates that increased, and obviously they did increase mainly because of lacking of capacity, and there has been a lot of shift, maybe not necessarily from road to rail, but also from, I would say, ocean to rail, in order to further save additional cost. That's pretty much where we are in terms of Maersk Spot. Spot is a product that we offer in the market to reduce volatility in price and to ensure the booking is confirmed as booked, so the cargo is not rolled due to overbooking or whatsoever. And this has been something appreciated by customers because, of course, it gives them the necessary stability, it gives them the necessary certainty in a moment of relative chaos. Obviously, there's been many more impact on COVID. Obviously, we work from home. A lot of our employees work from home. A lot of our employees has been clearly disrupted by COVID, but I would say in general we coped quite well, and our customer has been relatively pleased on the way we've been able to serve them. That's basically our sharing. So just as a brief wrap up, we started with a vision of AP Maersk, connect and simplify supply chain. Some thoughts on how we creating strategy. Some thoughts on the external factor, clearly customers and trade as a trade projection as the main one, and then the strategy house, how we are presenting pillars and enablers and our ambition, and then the agile approach that we try to have in everything we do, of course, including strategy, and then some brief thoughts on the impact of COVID.
All right. Thank you very much, Marco, for very insightful introduction to the company and also some of the strategy that the company have applied in onward changing times. So we have a few questions from the audience, but let me start by my first question. So Maersk is a global integrated logistics provider who can compete at global market. But now my question is, what are the opportunities for Vietnamese logistics provider who may have lacking capitals, technology? So what are the opportunities for them in such a competitive and fast changing markets?
But I think there is an opportunity to invest, to have more capability, particularly on the digital front. We are seeing quite a few Vietnam logistic providers who have overseas investors from Asia who are putting capital into the organization to make sure that the Vietnamese logistic company also has reach outside Vietnam. Traditionally, there's been a lot of trucking players in Vietnam, as of course the opportunity of trucking is there for everybody, but perhaps it's not necessarily the most profitable one because clearly it's really an overcrowded market. Another opportunity for Vietnamese logistic company is surely on the warehousing and distribution, where the demand is certainly set to increase due to the variety of foreign direct investment and sourcing of manufacturing that is coming to Vietnam. And I would say another opportunity for the Vietnamese player is to partner with international players so that they can serve a better customer who has import or export demands.
So a student asked about, you raised issues about the talents and also the employee need to have the set of skill that required for growth. What would you recommend to those graduate students in general and in logistics and supply chain in particular to meet up with the demand after your company, for example, and the industry?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, there will be a lot of requests of skills in terms of building the capability to build relationships with a very diverse set of stakeholders. Our customers are coming from all over the world, so we need people that are great in creating rapport, in having a broader view of the world. That means, of course, people who travel, who work overseas, and who are quite creative in creating a relationship with customers of a very, very different background. This is a skill that cannot be replaced by a machine, hopefully, either artificial intelligence or others. So the skill set to create rapport with people of a very different background and to be creative in the solution to offer to them, we think is extremely important. The second approach that I would like to emphasize is we like to see, I would say, colleagues who are comfortable in taking risks. And this is something that we are trying to drive a lot in the organization. And this is, of course, counterintuitive, right? I mean, we come from a mentality where normally you don't want to make mistake, you don't want your boss to blame you, and everybody happy. But now, if we want to be an entrepreneurial organization, if we want to decentralize decision making, and if we want to really move on fast as possible, then we need to take calculated risk. And so this attitude is something that we try to nurture in our own people, and we would like to see more and more from candidates. So those are the two thoughts coming, as a first impression.
Yep, thank you. I think we have probably time for another question. I think this question will be interesting. From In Nguyen, what innovation or technology that must have emphasized when the COVID-19 happens? So what innovation, what technology the company have applied or developed, to tackle the COVID-19?
Well, I think Maersk Spot has been a product that has been further intensified during COVID-19, because Maersk Spot is taking out uncertainty from the supply chain and obviously having some price stability to our customers. I would say this is what comes to mind as the biggest one. Perhaps it's not an innovation per se, but I can say that we receive a lot of praise from our customers on the way they have been served during the COVID-19, on the way we listen to them, and on the way we try to really shoulder the burden of COVID-19 that impact very heavily on their cost base and on their supply chain. So maybe it's not necessarily innovation, but a deeper listening of customer needs certainly help us a lot, not only to deal with the COVID-19 challenges, but also to further cement and strengthen the relationship with them in this moment of crisis.
Yep, thank you. And I think I would have the last question for you, because we probably have another 3 minutes.
Only if it's a nice one, of course.
Yeah. So this question from Lin Chen, does Maersk use any technology to control transportations? If yes, what will the company do if their partner, like brokers and customer, do not use the same compatible technologies? So how can you ensure that integration between your in-house technology and your customer?
Yes, we have different option on this one. We are not, of course, limiting ourselves because of any integration hurdles. We are working on different platforms that could connect us with different vendors, but we have a lot of technology which is created from headquarters and have a very strict boundaries within which it will be applied. So in general, we say we have a fairly flexible approach, and we look into the merit, into the value of the partner first, without trying to be limited on whether or not we can technologically be compatible or connectable. So we try to overcome that with tailor-made solution depending on the situation that we face. But we don't want to be blinded by the compatibility of the system. We want to make sure that we are working with the best possible partner that can fit our customer needs. On that, we then can build the technological framework of agreement.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, that probably would answer the student question. Now it's due to time's concern, so we really appreciate your times here, Marco, and you have shared with us. And yeah, I will look forward to your next event. So thank you again. And next, I will move to Ms. Huan to present your parts in terms of technology and automation in the supply chain. Please, Ms. Huan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So we're living in a once in a lifetime event, right? Which is COVID, the black swan for logistics. The global supply chain got interrupted and our life got impacted. The coronavirus crisis is a test for our supply chain. It will expose the company weakest link. Let's put it in the context. Imagine your manufacturer and supply worldwide. Hundreds of orders were placed overseas, and it takes about 3 to 4 weeks. In normal scenario, lead time plus shipping. However, during the COVID, sorry, can you still keep the first slide? Thank you. During COVID, we have a shortage in input raw materials. So we had conducted webinars in the Europe And many companies shared in the very first week of the outbreak, the companies would not know what they need to do. They are uncertain about the inputs because the bottleneck in some of their nodes in supply chain, and they are not certain of what is the lead time, and they have to review the assortments. Some product is very low in stock, and some is very like overstocking, and they have low in production performance due to the safety measures need to be taken. The customer demand to give the estimated time of arrival, but they could not really answer. So I see this in social media. You place an orders of shoes overseas, and the manufacturer cannot give you a timing when your shipment will be done. Like it takes now 7-8 weeks, and now you're very furious with that orders and you cancel. And an upset customers are very dangerous for the company reputations, right? And that happens. The second example is with COVID impacts to the company supply chain. So I have known only the Green Cross hand sanitizer, but during COVID, so we had the out of stock for quite some weeks, right? And the local manufacturers, which is on one and Lifebuoy, now produce and introduce their hand sanitizer branding. So many products is being produced locally, and many people ship to online shopping. So we will discuss that later in the very next slide. However, in my presentation, I will not discuss a lot of the cross-border trading, but this is more of inland logistics with retails and e-commerce and B2B distribution in focus. Okay, now next slide, please. Let's take a step back to understand what is the situation of logistics in Vietnam. So our logistics is very, very high. It accounts for 20.9% of our GDP. And according to our prime ministers, the 20.9% is very high, and it happened due to the under leverage of multimodal transport. So we have trucking, we have sea freight, we have railroad, we have air freight, but mostly trucking was used, and it's account for 70.2%, and 45% of the trucks returning back empty. So that contribute a lot to the very high cost. So just give you a benchmarking, right? The US used 3.5% of the GDP on national defense. Okay, so that's how big that the logistics cost proportions in Vietnam is, and compared to other countries in the regions, Indonesia and Philippines have higher because they have a collections of islands. So it accounts for 24% in Indonesia, whereas it's lower for Thailand or even China. And in developed country, it takes about 9 to 14%. Okay. The reason for the very high cost is because we have multi-level of intermediate. So as I observed, it's happened more in the north, where the trucks owners will work with primary contractors. Let's give a name like Gemadet. So they will Gemadet will sign contracts with many others like FMCG companies to do B2B distributions. However, there's many layer is a layer working with Gemadet. That's why the pricing is very high, and that's why Logivan has a room for developing that business. Okay, and underdeveloped infrastructure. So if you travel a lot, you go to Taiwan or you go to US, you see our road is kind of narrow. Take into example the national road of 13. That connect to many of our seaport, and it is relatively narrow compared to other countries, and that's why there's a lot of traffic congestions going on. Okay. Next slide. So that's logistics in Vietnam. Now I'd like to take you to a broader pictures of supply chains. So supply chains is very complex. There are multiple nodes between the originations and destinations. The market dynamics change drastically these days. The popularity of direct-to-consumer modules, the ever-changing demands of customers, such as more channels to buy from, demand for faster delivery, more product variety, and the hunger for convenience that pose pressures on our supply chains. And on the other hand, the variables to consider in operations are varied, like the number of incoming orders that may vary days by days. We have companies that have shared with us, one day they use only 10 to 15 trucks. The other day they use 100 to 150 trucks. So imagine how much of the demand spikes and fluctuation. Such machine will leave a very high pressures on a person operating it. Other constraints are the volume and weight, the availability of your fleets or fleet mix. Fleet mix meaning you have multiple capacity across your fleet, right? Traffic conditions, route restrictions, or road constraints, the driver preference, the customer preferred time slot, the priority of orders, how to club orders to optimize your cost, how to ensure full truckloads, how to ensure the first attempt delivery rate, and avoid miss or failed deliveries, how to ensure customer satisfaction. And if we're thinking about it in a big scales, like you manage like thousands of orders per day, it is even humanly impossible. That's why a technology come into place to help improving the efficiency, consistency, and transparency across the stakeholder. So let me give you some example, the difficulties companies would face to operate their supply chain, so logistics in particular. So I have a 3PL companies. They have shared, they have 30% of their deliveries are not done successfully in first attempt. The reason was the person who do the dispatch plannings and the person who executed, which is the drivers, are different persons. So the planner would say one truck would deliver 15 orders around Ho Chi Minh City in one day. However, the driver do not know the location very well in order to fulfill that 15 orders. And he could make only, someone could make only 5 to 7 orders. And there's traffic jams during peak hour, right? And we have truck restriction time, which is 6 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 8 p.m. in Ho Chi Minh City. And during that route restriction time, truck restriction time, they have to move out to Ho Chi Minh City. And imagine how it will eat up to their profit. Okay, so let's move on to next slide. But during this time, the supply chain is evolving. So most of our studies we got from, we tried to collect from Gartner. So Gartner is a leading IT business solutions consultancy. Their biggest case study is they successfully consult Salesforce.com from a startup becoming a $1 billion companies selling CRM. So that's a very well-known company. So we had I want to bring you bring your attention to the volatility of customer demand, which we have discussed, and consumer expectations are changing higher. That is among the top challenges in supply chain. And regarding to logistics, so there's one interesting point I want to mention here is logistics is not just a mere cost center. So any investment in logistics is is considered very careful because it is a cost that nobody wants to increase it, right? However, it is now recognized as a big part of the system that can, in very much way, impact the profitability of a company. So this is surveyed that 55% of consumers switch to a brand if it offers a quicker delivery service. So this is a study by Gemini Research in 2018. So that's how important it is. And let's think, imagine you are now placing in orders in an e-commerce site, and if the delivery, even though during COVID, let's say the delivery time is promised to be 2 weeks or even over 1 week, what do you think? So during our study, it showed that 20% of the person will leave at checkout if they see the delivery time is too slow. So that's how important it is. It is now a tool to achieve the competitive edge of a company as well. And next slide, please. Speaking of COVID, so COVID across the supply chains has a very great impact. Particularly in Vietnam, we have a very have growth in Q1, which is 3.8%, a 10-year low. And retail has direct impact due to reduction in total demand. And we see many companies got impacted because almost 60% of our inputs or raw material sourcing is coming from China, Japan, and Korea. And those countries are also like impacted like during COVID. That's why most of the inputs are being impacted, and we have panic buying, which is not sustainable and cause unnecessary scarcity in the markets and making essential items inaccessible to those in need. And we have seen the online shopping has increased more and more these days. So according to Nielsen Research, they have a research in March, I believe. It is said that 64% of the consumers will continue with their online shopping post COVID. So it brings a bigger future to this segment, which I will introduce in more details to you. What are the active users and what is gross merchandise values across e-commerce in Southeast Asia. We'll discuss later. And next slide. So this is more specifically what happened in Vietnam. So a lot of digital transformation is among the most talked about in mainstream newspaper, even promoted by the government media. There's a dedicated broadcast in VTV. I think there's two shows basically, and it takes 30 minutes each, showing the significance of the digital transformation across countries. As an example, we have Japan has come up with the e-Japan plan since 2001, but only until COVID outbreak, the government has issued the plan in the first week of July, which show the commitment and dedication to realize that e-Japan in the e-Japan plan more aggressively and accelerating such process. And in Indonesia, there's also 300,000 enterprises now starting their digitalization journey. And according to McKinsey, so normally digitalization is just a 5-year plan, but now it takes only 8 weeks in order to adopt such IT solutions. And that shows that created a hype in the market. However, if you look at the development of IT adoptions, countries in the world talks a lot about AI, but digitalization is the very first step in order to achieve the AI. So that also shows the levels of IT adoptions in Vietnam. Okay, so if you have any questions about this, particularly technologies, I will willing to discuss further. That's another very interesting topic. But we, to sum up, we are now in the very beginning of the journey to of IT or technology adoptions across the business sector. Okay, next slide. So speaking of the distribution networks, traditionally, as you see, we had the logistic will start with a factory to warehouse, which we called primary movement, and from warehouse to aggregator or distributors, wholesalers, we called secondary movement, and to customer we called last mile movement or last mile delivery. So last mile delivery you may have heard a lot of in e-commerce. Okay, so that's how traditionally it is, but in the very bottom you see more evolutions of the distribution networks. Can you click one more time? Yeah. And with the penetration of internet coming into place, we have a very a more interesting market. So you know, in Southeast Asia, we have now 360 million users, internet users in 2019. Okay, so now you think of the population of Vietnam. So normally we look at the size of economies, we look at populations. Maybe Indonesia will be the top, and Vietnam is the second biggest in populations. But this is like a separate country, like a very big one. And the GMV, which is gross merchandise value of all of the merchandise that go through the channels, it got a value of 100 billion in 2019, and it is expected to grow to 300 billion in 2025. So the GDP of Vietnam is 260 billion, right? So this is like another economy, and that's why it looks very appealing. And with COVID coming into place, more people will continue doing online shopping. So this market is very huge. Now we have a look back at the evolutions. So I would like to bring your attention to the direct to customer modules, and would bring you to a concept we call same day delivery. So direct to customer module is becoming more and more popular, and the KPI over that is become more and more aggressive. So world over, same day delivery shipping has become the next big revolution in Southeast Asia, and is many ways becoming trendsetter. So we know some companies in Vietnam also provide 2 hours delivery, right? And same day delivery is actually very popular in FMCG companies. They have the stable demands, and they let's say they will tell their distributors to make delivery to retailers or retail outlets within 12 hours or 24 hours. So that's a common. But with e-commerce, it's become very much tricky. We see JD.com, one of the leading e-commerce marketplace. They have the double 11. So policy. The 11 a.m. Orders will be delivered by in the afternoon, and 11 p.m. orders will be delivered in the next morning. So that's the KPI. But for Southeast Asia, we have more aggressive than that. We have 2 hours. However, in order to achieve that, that takes a lot of effort. We had a talk show with Bukalapak, which is a $2.5 billion unicorn, also locust customer. The very first step, so they talked about digitalization first. So do you remember once you first use Grab or Uber, the only concerns were the lacking of trust. But as long as you can review their history, their record of working or performance, all the data is transparent thanks to digitalizations. The trust is being gained. So that's the very first step. So the digitalization and transparency has managed to combine the ever increasing demand from the supply and which is the drivers, and the demand, which is the hungry for convenience of or speed delivery of the customers. The other critical factor is order density. So high density of people mean more dense orders. So with the development of e-commerce marketplace, the more dense orders we have, more and more 3PL players will go into place and make use of the dense of orders, because if they can leverage the density or club the orders better, the cost per order will become reduced, and hence their profit will improve, right? So that's also one of the secrets of the e-commerce platform operations. We have also buy online, pick up in stores modules, and also pick up and drop off network. So those are not very popular in Vietnam, but I believe it is more popular in countries like US, or even let's say pick up and drop off network. If you've been in Thailand, you will see a lot of 7-Eleven or at the MRT stop, there will be a shop, a parcel shop that you can drop your parcel, or you pick up your orders that you have delivered, you have ordered online. So those are the some of the very innovative. If you would love to find out more and leave questions, otherwise I will prove this very quickly. Okay. Okay, next slide, please. There are multiple operating models, but I would like to bring two as an example, which is the marketplace model, and the second will be the omni-channel logistics. So starting first with marketplace, where you will have a lot of vendors, marketplace vendor to pick up your orders from, and many end consumer to drop your orders. So there will be what we call schedule orders, which is the customer or the vendors clearly define what time they would like their parcel to be picked up or dropped off. So that's scheduled. On demand is what you see in Grab Food or Grab Express, where this happen in a ad hoc basis, right? So that's on demand. So with our system, one example is that with on demand request, it will pop up to the control tower, and it will scanning all of the driver nearby, so that it can automatically select, or the operator can choose what drivers at the nearest and have the availability to fulfill such shipment. And upon they select such drivers, it will go into the mobile applications of the driver as a task, and they just go ahead and do execute such orders. So that's the example of on demand. We have also one concept called reverse logistics. So this is now becoming easier, where you deal with the returns. So if the customer, if you have the policy to allow returns within 2 days or 3 days, then if they have a request of return, then you can go ahead and leverage any of the fleet nearby to pick up that and bring back to the hub. So that will be a part of the solution, where you remember why logistic costs in Vietnam is so high, right? With 45% of the trucks returning back empty. So that's also how we can leverage the capacity available at the moment. So basically, with those types of orders, like scheduled, on demand, or reverse logistics, there's a very complicated constraints and requirements for each of the orders. So what the system do is it has an AI engine that can take into considerations all of the constraints given the orders quantity and volume, the availability of your fleet or fleet mix, the requirements of the customers like time slot, the driver reference, like they have knowledge on some particular zone only. Then it will come up with the route planning automatically and with a very short time, unlike we have to do it manually. Okay. The second module, which is next slide, please. Second module is the omni-channel logistics. So for omni-channels, one example is you have multiple source of orders, right? This is order online or from your retail outlets. But what's special is basing on this study, nowadays, I have customers who run chasing the 2 hours delivery. So that once they simulate their data onto Locus platform, they find out that their trucks are under leveraged. So the truck utilization is now only 20 or 30%. Some bike, they only take 1 or 2 items and then make delivery and come back, and it's a waste. One solution for that is that we have something called customer time slot. So upon the orders placements online on the e-commerce site, they can see what are the available slots for delivery. So once they choose the slot that they want, it is booked and in the system. And then upon planning, you will ensure the delivery will be done at the time committed to the customers. So that's also a solution that makes your customer happy, but also utilize your fleet better, your resources better, balance between both. Okay, so that's I think the end of the presentation. We will go through very quickly the demonstration. I hope this will visualize better what being said earlier. Okay. All right. So let's see, this is the dashboard we have for the dispatch planner. I will introduce this. This is the multiple team that I have. And one team, I will have the concept called batch. So one batch is the collections of customer orders that I have. And in one batch, I may have multiple plans. The reason is I may run many what if scenarios in that same collections of data. And if I run and change the scenario, it will happen to become multiple plans over here. So I will choose this plan for demonstrate. So in order to see the plan like this, there will be 4 very simple steps. Basically, just reviewing your data. What I want to draw your attention to is the geocoding engine. So this is rare. Not so many company would provide. So for e-commerce, imagine you have addresses that is not in uniform. So it's missing some few locality like word, missing district, but the system is smart enough that it can recommend which is the locations with this kind of address. Okay, if this is not good, then you can drag and drop or adjust it very simply by searching the address, just like what you see in the Google map. Okay, So these are what I have made adjustment, and it can show clearly here. The third step is checking the configurations of your trucks. So there may be some trucks set up before, and I just choose it. There are multiple constraints that you can put into, like the travel distance. It is particularly for bike delivery, where you set like one bike only travel 80, 70 kilometers, and you only restrict them to travel up to 6 hours or number of tasks. You can go ahead and do so. Or there a function we call fairness. So there's chances like the salary of the bikers may be the same, but one person can deliver 10 per day and the other deliver 20 per day. So in order to prevent such a situation, we have a function called fairness. Upon uploading all of your sales orders and information of your fixed or fixed mix, and voila, all of the tool will be generated. And what I have shown you is something very interesting we call cluster. So imagine if all of these 12 vehicles are done and 224 orders were done manually. This is very hard to visualize how it go to, and there will be chances there you will have overlap between the cluster, and the overlapping means it's a waste, right? It means me and my colleague travel in the same areas, and this is not optimized. Okay, there will be more user interface into this, but this is in the flow that easy for the operations to review all of the tasks and assign to the drivers. That's the planning, but then up to the executions, all of the order status will be at the control tower updated in real time, so that I have a customer which is a leading FMCG companies. Before, they do not have any IT adoptions. So imagine they have to call the transporter will call the drivers to track the status of one single order, and it takes a lot of time, and they have no visibility over the operations. And it is dangerous if we speak of strategic planning, right? You do not have that transparency over across the stakeholders. That's why you think you have 100 fleets and doing the let's say 100 orders, and this is still fine. It is reported back to you. Actually, you still have room to increase your orders up to 20%, and that 10 trucks is still available and is able to fulfill such volume. However, with data, it is more concrete, right? You see the fleet utilizations, which is let's say 60%, and you can come up with that decision. But if this is 85%, then you be conservative, and maybe I need to increase more trucks, not to utilize more. So that's some of the example how a solution like this would improve the efficiencies and support the management team better. Okay, and there will be also what we call predictive alert for all of the abnormal events that need your instant attention or prompt response, like late delivery or location missing and halt, like they stop somewhere for too long. So that's the end of I think I'm also running out of time. So that's also the end. And yeah, I'm willing to receive questions, and there's a lot of to talk about, but if you leave questions, and yeah, we can discuss more in depth.
Sure. Sure. Thank you, Ms. Huân, for a very great insight into technology as a software company that you have brought to the audience. So I have a lot of questions, but let's just bring up some most relevant question that I think you can address now. But first of all, it's about AI. So you mentioned about AI in your models, and a few of the audience are quite interested in how the AI can be used in as a solution to logistics and supply chain management. What are the key, what are the possibility and difficulties in applying AI into supply chain management? Okay, can you share your insight with this question?
Yes. As mentioned earlier, there's in my experience, and to put it simple, there's 3 levels of AI, like AI adoptions. So first, you would have to digitalize your organizations. So let's say like I have, let's say an example, like I have a contract and like in paper, and then I would say how much in values that I have in total contracts of 2019, and what are the customer sectors that I have across those contracts, right? What are the scopes of service I need to provide? So such, if you are not digitalizing such information, is very difficult in order to do it. So it's similar to logistics in particular. When I need the input in order to produce an output, right? So the input would be your sales orders, IT, and with wage and volume. So because if there's only orders, which is three bottle of water, but you do not have weight and volume, and how can we match with the capacitated vehicle? So that's the volume and weight is mandatory, right? You have to have your customer information. So basic, the addresses can be missing some locality, but at least you have to have the address. I have some customer, they don't have the address at all. They just have the phone number, the province, and like the second tier, the words, or you can say district, province, and phone numbers. So that still sounds kind of like unbelievable, but it happens in Vietnam a lot. Like if you go to that province, you would pick up your phone call, and across like multiple years of working, they don't collect such informations, and this is very difficult. And then next is the fixed informations. So fixed informations means you have to know how many trucks you have, and its capacity. So capacity meaning like 1.9, but sometimes you have to put like 80% of utilization only. So you do have to understand the resources that you have in hand. So those are the basic informations for locals. But in supply chain, it's a broader topic. But for us, we need to have some basic information that you record in the system somewhere as an input in order to produce an output. Okay. So for in overall, according to Gartner's, so the 3 level will start with building your digital twin. Okay. So all of your operations will be digitalized. Then second, you will collect your data. So collecting data, meaning you have 3-4 years of sales orders, and you have to understand what field, and you have to structure your data. And then with the help of AI, it's another level where you will train the engine to then learn from the data and automate some of the decision, like mimic the human behavior and make decisions. And then it will lessen the workload of the person. So that's the 3 level. But for us, our AI is trained across the industry. So we work with 3PL, e-commerce, retail, FMCG companies, and that's why we had an engine that is being trained over this. And this engine is processing 1.5 million orders per day. So it is being trained continuously across the multiple industries. so that if you're falling in such industry, you will inherit the benefit of an AI, just like us. So that's from Lucas. But with an organizations as a whole, there will be many other aspects to look at. But technology-wise, they will look at the 3 levels of IT adoptions to have an AI. And since AI will intervene in, not for us, but if you look at the total supply chains, it will intervene into many of your processes. So in order to adopt it, there will be testing as well. So it applies in our implementation or deployment modules. So it will start when you run simulation over your historical data to see or visualize your operations. Then we will have the pilot, which is you pick a DC or a distribution center to test out or use the system and conduct change management. So to make sure everything is going well, then we'll go to the next phase, which is go live. So that is also the process where we think about deploying an AI solution.
Okay, thank you. So it means that the first thing we need to do is really to digitize the business, the information, the inputs, so that subsequent intelligence can be populated from your system, right? I just summarize your answer. Now, the next question, I think this is quite common. So at the beginning, you highlight that logistics in Vietnam is very high cost, right? Almost 21%. We got a very poor infrastructure, facilities. So in terms of using technology as a solution, what your company can offer in this area, that how technology can be used to overcome those limitations?
Yeah. So as you see, the trend is many of our input will be locally sourcing, or the production will be moved mostly to domestic, and therefore the networks from origination to destination will be more dense. So it will come to the problem whether you can best monitor and optimize your operations. So now people think a lot about optimization, cost efficiency. So every cost you spend has to have the efficient, the best efficiency in it. So with our technologies, it is basically you have to deliver something from point A to point B. In between, there are probably multiple nodes. And the beauty of this AI engine is that it helps you to do your work easier, make life easier. But you have a bunch of orders, like up to thousands orders, and it only takes 30 minutes to then generate your route planning. And the task of the operations is now just reviewing and assigning tasks or managing their resources, which is the fleet. And speaking of efficiencies, let me give you some example. So one dispatch planner may spend 6 to 8 hours per day doing their work continuously, day by day. So with 1,000, it takes 30 minutes to make a dispatch plan for one truck for junior people. For senior, maybe 15 minutes, one route. So if you, in the sense like 1 hour you can set up for 4 rounds, then 6 hours you can take for 6 times 4, 24 routes. And that will just multiply up, right? And with the help of AI solutions, you take 30 minutes, but the scalability is for the cloud to do. And you would need that just minimum number of people to process or review on, and your people is doing higher level tasks. like managing the drivers, the transporters, and ensuring the customer is happy. So improving efficiency is what we say we is promoting and supporting for logistics.
Yep, thank you. So I can see that a lot of focus now using technology to improve efficiency of the business, right? Because I agree with you that to change infrastructure is a national, it's a macro level that company would hardly can change it. But what a logistics provider can do is to make the process, the operation more efficient, more automated, and probably smarter. And yeah, I think one of that your key services is your company that offer to provide those platform. I have one last question before the times run out. So when you say that the using technology we can improve efficiencies and AI into that planning process, but what would be the main challenges for company, logistics company or e-commerce company or just normal businesses adopt new technology? What are the main challenges in doing so?
Well, this is I would say, the mindset of the owners and of the team. So depending on the organization culture, whether this is more open to changes or not, but the mindset of the owners or people is very important. So let me take an example of an ERP. So ERP is common, right? So for P&G, they use SAP, which is a very famous software. However, the implementation is not successful because of the change management. So people are more resisting to change. So it's the mindset of the owner is very good. She decided to use an ERP, but the people, the operations is not willing to take it. That's why it's a failure in implementations. So there are many constraints, but if you ask a lot of IT solution providers, the thing would come first is people. So if the people collaborate, then it's good. If the owner's mindset is good, then you have a good start. Like you have a go ahead signal. But in order to make it a success, then the mindset of operation people will have to collaborate, because to adopt an IT solution, it takes a lot of time and effort. They have to give their resources during a day, maybe a few hours, to then testing the system or not doing what they used to doing, but do it in a different way. But they will see the benefit in the long run. But at the moment, it changed drastically what they used to be doing. So in any projects, the project management is very important, and we take people as a focus and do a lot of change management. Like we have to share the objectives across the stakeholders of business users, business owners. People are looking at the same directions, and we are committed to make it happen. And that's what important. But for IT vendors like us, we try to shorten the implementation period. So the longer it takes, the higher chance it will become a failure. So we try to make the implementation shorter and shorter. So that's why a SaaS model, which is software as a service, come into place. So it's a very new technology model, but that's another aspect. So to sum up, people is very important. It is a success factor in successful deployment. And for us, the shorter timeline it is, the higher chance you will make it happen.
Yep, thank you very much for that question. And again, we bring up the issues of human factor. in technology adoptions, which have always been a key challenge in adopting technology. But I think with the COVID-19, with the situation changed so rapidly, some people have to really under the pressure that change or survive, right? So sometimes it's not even a choice anymore. Thank you very much, Smith Huns. This wraps up this session. We have a lot more questions that we have not gone through, but we'll record the question and we'll share with the presenter. So hopefully we'll get some answers and we will share to on the audience. Also, I just remind that the session will be have been recorded and the video will be shared with you later. And now I pass to Professor Matthew and Koma to wrap up the session and thank you to the presenter. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Dr. Heath, chairing the session. But also, I would like just to once again acknowledge Ms. Juan and Mr. Marco for just sharing your knowledge, experience with all our students and also our staff from both Vietnam and also in Melbourne. I think the topics have been so broad in terms of the logistics and supply chain, but also we have learned a lot just going through all the statistics that you have shared with us. And some of I've been reading the comments and the questions from our students has been like really interested in the topic. So I would like also just to emphasize that this is the way of the School of Business and Management connecting with the industry. So all these sessions will be recorded and you can have access to the sessions maybe by tomorrow. So thank you very much to everyone who has been involved in organizing this event, but also to the events team for just coordinating the behind the scene logistics. Thank you very much. And once again, I'm looking forward to meeting you again on our business talk number 6. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Should I hand it over to you now, Hip?
Yep, thank you. And that pretty much the end of the session. And we thank you on the audience, the colleagues from Melbourne. I got some questions from Elsie. I can see your questions. So really appreciate your time in joining the session from Australia. And thank you everyone again and have a nice day. Bye bye.